Okay, so here's my Ash vs Evil Dead. Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, whatever you want to call it, chainsaw. And basically what I did was I just kind of made a mix match of, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness and Ash vs Evil Dead into this one chainsaw build. I could have done a neater job, but for the first time build, I am quite happy with it. So the original chainsaw itself is a Honmai XL12, which I just completely dismantled. Kept only the body and the handle, everything else scrapped. I couldn't salvage anything, not even the bar mount or the bar. So for the actual handle, I had to chop it because it does come in to where the aluminium and plastic meet. So I chopped that, got a load of rubber shrink tubing to make it a lot neater because it was rusty as all hell. Kept the original caps. Replaced the pull cord handle with a little cheap wooden dowel. You can get them in any hardware store, just any dowel. I get back to that later on because there's one thing that I actually am really proud of that I was able to do. The handle, got a local friend of mine who is a really nice man, who is a skilled welder and mechanic and builder, to fashion me a aluminium frame, like so. Now, he could have just given me a length of aluminium bar. I could have bent it myself, but he just knows how to bend it properly, so he did it for me, so I can't take credit for this. What I can take credit for is the wooden dowel, which is the exact same. This wooden dowel is the exact same as cheap cut-off, which looks something like this. Just cheap, basic hardware wooden dowel. Costs like €4, whatever that is in dollars. Split that and wedged it, so I crimped it over the aluminium bar with these heavy duty screws. In the Ash vs Evil Dead, he has like a layer of duct tape for whatever reason, so I just cosmetically, it doesn't serve any purpose, hold it down with that. The hardest part of this whole build would be where you insert your wrist into the chainsaw, because initially what I did was I got a plastic off a lid of a cookie jar, but the problem is it didn't have any strength or rigidity. It was serving the purpose, but it was flexing, so it looked more square as opposed to round. So I got these couplers, this big heavy duty coupler, and then I got these belt clips which came off this waste pipe sewerage thing. You can see the two ridges where they came out of. I was planning to use this at the end, but I thought, nah, that just extends out way too much, and in any reference of photographs it doesn't come out that far, so that's just idly spare. What I did take from it, steal from it, was these two belt clips here, which kind of hide a lot of the screws that are held on by these kind of side connectors here. In fact, there's probably still a bit of play, so I could do it to actually tighten the screw down a bit more. The exhaust vent for the pull handle, another tricky situation. Initially I found this cheap egg slicer which looked pretty good. The problem being is that the dimensions were well off. So I looked and I looked and I looked and I said, oh, the hell with it. So I just got a cheap biscuit tin, which was made of aluminium, cut the same diameter, ironically, as a takeaway coffee cup, and then bent and formed around it, and then just like hot glued it down. And then the grill lines, they're just felt tip markered on. But from afar, it looks pretty good. I could do it a better job, but for the time being, this looks as good as it's gonna get. Alright, moving around to the other side. Okay. The bar. The bar was a bit tricky as well too. Thankfully I got this bar for free. There's a local chainsaw dealer nearby where I work actually. They specialize in chainsaws, ride-on lawnmowers, strimmers, all two-stroke engines and garden accessories. I rang up the guy and I says, by chance, call me crazy, do you have any spare dead chainsaw bars? Like, people to just, repair their chainsaws and they discard their bars where they've just been worn out or dulled. And he goes, I have a bucket of them. What length do you want? By chance, have you got a 20-inch length? No, but I have an 18-inch. That'll do. So I was very thankful to get this really heavy-duty 18-inch bar. I know every reference of Evil Dead will tell you it's a 20-inch, but 18 inches will have to do, I'm afraid. If you look closely, I tried to camouflage it with some spray paint, but I just couldn't get the groove off. This was initially a steel bar. The chain, again, completely dull. I deliberately dulled it myself. This I had to purchase separately. I tried my best to dull it because I want to use this as a prop, and I know chains can be quite sharp, so I tried to dull it as best I can, and I deliberately left it outside for a day or two to try out a bit of rust, which seemed to work. Then getting on to the actual mounting of the chainsaw bar, I should say. I used the original crimp that was included with the chainsaw itself. Had to drill an additional hole here for an additional washer, so it looks like a 2-pin connector, even though the Homelite XL only has 1-pin connector like this. Had to use 2, unfortunately, so I had to drill into the precious body, among other mini screws. But just for actual support and strengthening, I had to do it. But from afar, looks pretty okay. I also wedged a small bit of the cut off of the dowel, same stuff as this, in the centerpiece there, where the dog teeth, whatever you want to call them, and the bar meet. And that just kind of adds a bit of straightening of the bar, because if you look, the bar is like this. Without that little wedge, the bar would have been just askew. So I had to kind of wedge something in there and then spray painted it black so it just doesn't look like anything from afar. The front, there was a big wide gap. Unfortunately, I didn't get my measurements right, so I just covered it up as best I could to make it look like a vent or some sort. But again, from afar, this is only a prop. This is not going to be, you know, an up close examining. And then, like I said, the original switch of the chainsaw itself, I kept. Doesn't serve any purpose, but just it's nice to actually have a physical, movable part. Which brings it back onto the pull cord. Now, this pull cord, I swear to God, it tormented the life out of me. My first plan was to just, you know, cut the original pull cord off the chainsaw itself, whatever's in here, just keep it be there. Cut the original pull cord off and just put a wooden dowel like what you see in the movie and all the TV series. It just looks like a cheap wooden pull cord. But I really wanted to have a physical pull cord so I could actually pull. So I salvaged an old recoil spring off an old hedge trimmer that I had lying around. And you know the recoil spring, big massive spring, just twang went. I went through 4 of them. I'm not even joking, 4 of them, and it broke my damn heart. I even got to the point of even sabotaging an old tape measure to see if that would work. Broke my heart. Till eventually, I was ironically in my local village, and I had to get my key cut. I went to a local locksmith, and lo and behold, what I found was these these keychain pulleys, these little security pulleys that you see people that work in offices, they have like for the ID badges. You'll know them when you see them, but that just fit in there perfectly. And then I ran the cord. I hot glued that in place so it would not move. And then I ran the actual metal cord off the keychain pulley down into it. And then I figured, but I still want to keep the look of the actual string itself. So I just packed it all in there tight as I could and just hot glued the ever loving crap out of it. And suffice to say, I actually have a physical bolt chain. It doesn't have the best strength, but still, like, you know, like a physical bolt chain, which I'm quite happy with. And it is made of metal, so it'll last a bit longer than the nylon cheap ones you get. And then I'd say finally moving down to the actual exhaust. This is the original exhaust that came with the chainsaw itself. I just botched it on and left a little bit of a gap to try to keep it as close as I could. This was rusted as all hell, so I had to completely file it down, sand it down, try to get rid of all that corrosion and dust and rust that build up, and just spray painted the ever loving crap out of it. You can even still see a small bit of rust in there. Well, if this gives up, I'll have no choice but to go along and purchase another one, but for the time being, from afar, it looks pretty good. Now, moving on the inside, you can see there is a whole lot of screws holding it down, so I tried my best to keep the screws facing outwards. So if anything, if I put my hand in, my hand's only going to rub against the actual Phillips heads. On the inside, you can see from afar there are some 2 wood screws sticking out. That is to hold the piece of wood down there. And then there's the pull cord as mentioned. And there is my, you can see, there is my chain bar there attached. Not the best angle, I do apologize, but I tried my best. And meanwhile, trying to keep the actual chainsaw itself as intact as I could. Trying to get this cowling in here without taking too much of the body off was difficult in itself. But suffice to say, I think I covered it up as good as I could. And like I said, it doesn't look like anything back here from any of the movies or TV shows. But like I said, from afar, as a Halloween prop, I am quite generally chuffed at it. My hand fits in here nicely. It is quite heavy because that bar weighs a damn ton. And at the end of the day, I can say it is pretty groovy. And I love it. And I can't wait for Halloween. Here's to all the Evil Dead fans out there.